Have you ever thought that stopping your car on a deserted highway could be the last mistake of your life? Today, we will hear 4 true stories where a journey turned into a nightmare, an unknown shadow stalking you for miles, or a death trap set in the desert. After watching this video, you will think 100 times before traveling alone at night.
Please subscribe my channel and enjoy the stories.
The Silent Observer. There is a small 24-hour convenience store just off the highway, not far from where I live. In my rural town, it's practically the only sign of life after dark. Because my sleep schedule is completely broken, I've found myself making late-night trips there more often than I'd like to admit. I'm usually just another faceless customer, blending into the background, but after what happened recently, I don't think I can ever go back there comfortably. It was deep into the night, well past the time decent people are asleep. I had been glued to my laptop for hours, lost in a heavy coding session. When you're in that flow state, you forget everything else until your body forces you to stop. Suddenly, I went from perfectly fine to absolutely starving. I decided to take a break and head to that lonely little store. The drive was quiet, just me and the empty road. When I arrived, the parking lot was deserted. I went inside, ordered some food at the counter, and started wandering the aisles while I waited. I'm naturally restless, always needing to move, so I found myself pacing toward the back of the store. That's when I saw him. Sitting on the cold linoleum floor, right in front of the refrigerated drinks section, was a man. He was sitting cross-legged, just staring intently at the glass doors of the fridge. It was such a bizarre, out-of-place sight that my brain didn't even register it at first. I walked past, then immediately whipped my head back to confirm what I'd seen. He was just sitting there, motionless, wearing a heavy brown coat despite the warmth of the store. I couldn't see his face from where I stood, and curiosity got the better of me. I needed to know what kind of person does that. I walked down the next aisle, planning to quickly peek around the corner, get a look at him, and then pretend I was just shopping. I didn't want to be rude and just stare. I tried to be casual, but I must have made a sound. The second I rounded the corner, his head snapped toward me with terrifying speed. It wasn't a normal reaction, it was primal. I froze. This guy wasn't just weird. Something was seriously wrong. His eyes were unnervingly wide, unblinking, and his lip was trembling violently like he was freezing to death, even though it was perfectly comfortable in there. But it was his stare that truly rattled me. It was completely devoid of humanity. No anger, no confusion, just a dead, empty gaze that bored right through me. It felt like looking into the eyes of a corpse that had somehow kept moving. I broke eye contact and hurried back to the front counter, my heart hammering in my chest. The anxiety was overwhelming. While waiting for my food, I kept angling my body so I could see the corner, half expecting him to come charging out. He never did. I grabbed my order the second it was ready and practically ran out the door. I thought that was the end of it. I was wrong. As I was pulling out onto the dark highway, a movement caught my eye in the rearview mirror. Someone was sprinting full tilt across the parking lot toward a truck. Even in the dark, I recognized that brown coat. A chill went through me. I didn't want to know what he was rushing for in the dead of night. I slammed on the accelerator, just wanting to be home and safe behind locked doors. Minutes passed, and the store's lights faded behind me, leaving me in total darkness. I was used to being the only car on the road this late, which is why the sudden appearance of headlights behind me made my stomach drop. They were closing in. Too fast. At first, I thought it might be a police officer, so I instinctively eased off the gas. But as the vehicle roared up behind me, bathing my car in blinding light, I realized it wasn't a cop. It was a pickup truck. It was him. Panic exploded in my chest. I floored it. The truck behind me started flashing its high beams aggressively, the driver leaning on his horn in a long, maddening blast. I didn't know what to do. I was in a smaller sedan. He was in a massive truck. I figured my only chance was speed. I pushed my car to its absolute limit. The engine was screaming, and the scenery was blurring past in a terrifying streak of black and gray. Every instinct I had was screaming that I was going to crash, that I was going to die right there on that lonely road. I tried to swerve into the other lane to let him pass, hoping maybe he just wanted to get by. He didn't. He swerved right with me, staying glued to my bumper. He was hunting me. Desperate, I decided to try and pull over, hoping he would just keep going. But the moment I tapped my brakes, bam! The truck rammed violently into the back of my car. My head snapped forward, and I barely kept control of the wheel. This wasn't a game. He was trying to run me off the road. He was trying to kill me. I saw him revving up for another hit in my mirror. It was pure survival instinct that took over. Just as he surged forward, I jerked the wheel hard to the left and slammed on the brakes. The truck shot past me, unable to react in time. I watched in horror and relief as he lost control, fishtailing wildly before spinning off the highway into the dark field alongside the road. I didn't stop to see if he was okay. I couldn't. My hands were shaking so uncontrollably I could barely grip the steering wheel, but I forced myself to drive. I didn't slow down until I was in my own driveway.
Story 2. The Trap in the Desert. A few summers back, I was working a strange logistics job, hauling expensive electronics through some of the most remote parts of the Southwest. It was lonely work, often requiring me to drive straight through the night on roads that most people avoid entirely. I didn't mind it, though. I'd always been comfortable on the road. On this particular night, I was deep into a long run, winding through a desolate stretch of New Mexico. If you've never driven there at night, you can't imagine the isolation. It's just you and the endless dark desert. You might go hours without seeing another pair of headlights. Well past midnight, I rounded a sharp bend and saw a flash of red on the side of the road. It was a small hatchback, pulled awkwardly onto the gravel shoulder with its hazard lights blinking weakly. Standing next to it was a young woman, holding her phone high in the air, desperately trying to find a signal. My first instinct, honestly, was to keep driving. It sounds harsh, but in these remote areas, you learn to be cautious. But then I thought about my own family. What if that was my sister stranded out here in the pitch black? I couldn't just leave her. Besides, I wasn't entirely defenseless. I kept a firearm secured near the driver's seat for exactly these kinds of unpredictable situations. I slowed down and cracked my window just a tiny bit. The woman rushed over immediately. She looked young, maybe my age, and completely panicked. She tugged frantically at my locked door handle, begging for a ride to the nearest gas station, claiming her car had totally died. Something felt off instantly. Her voice was jittery, and her words were slightly slurred, like she was intoxicated or on something heavy. I hesitated. Every alarm bell in my head was ringing, but knowing I was armed gave me a false sense of security. I unlocked the door. She practically fell into the passenger seat, muttering a vague thank you, without ever really looking me in the eye. As I prepared to pull away, I asked her what happened to her car. She wouldn't give me a straight answer, just kept nervously deflecting and telling me to just drive. I was getting ready to kick her right back out when I glanced in my side mirror one last time. My blood ran cold. A man had just stepped out from behind her broken-down car. He'd been hiding there the entire time, crouched in the darkness. Before my brain could even process that, I saw another movement ahead. Another figure had stepped into the middle of the road, blocking my path a short distance away. He was holding something long and menacing, a pipe or a baseball bat. It was an ambush. Pure adrenaline took over. I didn't think, I just reacted. I slammed my foot on the gas pedal, the engine roared, and I swerved around the man in the road, barely missing him. The woman in the seat next to me screamed. She whipped around to look at her accomplices, then immediately reached into her oversized purse, digging frantically for something. I knew exactly what was about to happen. "Freeze!" I yelled, drawing my weapon and resting it visibly on the steering wheel. I didn't point it at her, but the message was clear. She froze instantly. Her hand slowly came out of the purse, empty. She didn't say another word for the entire rest of the drive. She just stared straight ahead, completely stone-faced. It felt like an eternity, but we finally reached a small, brightly lit gas station with a few truckers parked outside. I pulled up and told her to get out. She started to argue, giving me some fake sob story, but I wasn't hearing it. I leaned over, shoved her door open, and physically pushed her out of my cab onto the pavement. She fell back, screaming wild accusations at me to anyone who would listen. I saw a trucker start to jog over, looking concerned for her. I didn't wait to explain. I just yelled a warning to him that she wasn't what she seemed, and I peeled out of there as fast as I could. Miles down the road, at a different station, I finally stopped to catch my breath. I looked over at the passenger seat where she had been sitting. Wedged deep between the cushions, I found what she had left behind: a spare battery for a burner phone and a sealed pack of heavy-duty zip ties. I realized then with sickening clarity what her role was. She was the bait. If I hadn't been armed, I would have been tied up in the desert and my truck would have been gone. I never reported it. I just threw those zip ties in the trash and kept driving, knowing how close I came to never making it home.
Story 3. The Woman in the Restroom. My husband and I were on a long cross-country road trip a few years ago. We decided to take the scenic routes, which unfortunately meant cutting through miles of absolute nothingness in the farmlands of Kansas. It was sweltering summer heat, even late at night. I had been asleep for hours when I felt the car slowing down. My husband was pulling into a tiny, run-down gas station in the middle of nowhere to refuel. Groggy and desperate for a bathroom break, I hopped out while he pumped gas. I didn't bother taking my phone or purse. I figured I'd just be a minute. The station was eerily quiet. The cashier didn't even look up as I walked toward the restrooms at the back down a narrow, dimly lit hallway. As I opened the restroom door, I almost collided with a woman coming out of a stall. She was unsettling. Her gray hair was matted and sticky, and despite the oppressive summer heat, she was wrapped in a thick, heavy winter coat. She wore cheap foam flip-flops that made a distinct wet slapping sound against the tile floor. She stopped and just stared at me. It wasn't a casual glance. It was a focused, predatory stare, like she was expecting me to know her. I gave an awkward nod and tried to squeeze past her to the sink, but she didn't move to make room. I thought she would leave. Instead, she turned and followed me deeper into the small restroom. She didn't wash her hands. She just stood behind me, arms stiff at her sides, watching me in the mirror. My skin crawled. I quickly ducked into the nearest stall and locked it, instantly regretting leaving my phone in the car. I was trapped. I sat there in total silence, just waiting for her to leave. Finally, I heard the slap, slap, slap of her flip-flops heading to the exit. I heard the heavy restroom door creak open and then slam shut. Silence returned. I almost unlocked the stall, but something stopped me. A sound. Very faint, but unmistakable. Breathing. It wasn't mine. It was coming from the corner of the restroom, near the door. She hadn't left. She had opened and closed the door to fake leaving. She was still in there, standing silently in the corner, waiting for me to come out. I sat frozen, barely daring to breathe myself. My heart was pounding so hard I thought she might hear it. Why would she do that? What was she waiting for? After what felt like agonizing minutes, the door opened and slammed again. The breathing stopped. But I still didn't trust it. I waited longer, sweat dripping down my forehead. Just as I reached for the lock, I heard a loud, frustrated gasp from near the door, followed by the door actually opening and closing for real this time. She had faked leaving twice. She's playing a game with me, trying to lure me out. Terrified, I finally unlocked the stall and bolted out of the bathroom, washing my hands in record time. I didn't know where she was now. When I got back into the main store, I used another customer as a human shield to get out the front door. As I burst outside into the night air, I saw her. She was lurking in the shadows near the entrance, crouched slightly like an animal ready to pounce. She was gripping something in her hand. It glinted in the harsh parking lot lights. It looked like a blade. Seeing me run, she didn't attack. She just turned and scurried around the dark back side of the building. I jumped into the car, locked the doors, and told my husband to drive now. As we pulled away, I saw her standing at the edge of the darkness, just watching us go. I never use lonely roadside restrooms anymore. Story 4. The van that wouldn't leave. I used to work a delivery job that required long overnight hauls through the Midwest in the dead of winter. It was easy money, but it's the reason I will never, ever, ever stop at a deserted rest area again. It was a freezing cold night, and I was driving on a major interstate hours from my destination. The fatigue was hitting me hard, my eyes struggling to stay focused on the black road ahead. I saw a sign for a rest area and decided I had to stop for a few minutes to wake up. The rest area was a ghost town, just a small brick building under flickering security lights. The only other vehicle in the massive lot was an old, beat-up white cargo van parked way in the back corner, its lights completely off. I parked under a light near the building and went inside. The restroom was freezing, the heater barely working. While I was washing my face with icy water to wake myself up, I swear I heard the restroom door creak open behind me. I spun around instantly. No one was there, just the cold wind rattling the vents. Feeling spooked, I hurried back outside. That's when I stopped dead in my tracks. The white van in the corner, its headlights were on now. I hadn't heard an engine start. It was just sitting there, idling silently, facing my truck. A wave of dread washed over me. I jumped into my truck, locked the doors, and started the engine. As I pulled away toward the highway exit, the van's lights suddenly clicked off again. It was like they were toying with me. I got back on the highway, constantly checking my mirrors. For the first few miles, nothing. Then 2 small points of lights appeared in the distance behind me. They were moving fast. It was the van. It caught up to me in seconds, right on my tail, blinding me with its high beams. I was already driving at full highway speed, but he was inches from my bumper. Suddenly, he swerved into my lane and matched my speed perfectly, pacing me. The passenger window rolled down. I couldn't see a face, just a dark shape in a hoodie. He started gesturing frantically, pointing toward the back of my truck bed, mouthing words I couldn't make out. He acted like something was desperately wrong with my load. I almost pulled over, but then I remembered my truck bed was completely empty that night. There was nothing back there to be wrong. He wasn't trying to help me. He was trying to trick me into stopping on the side of the dark highway. I stared straight ahead, ignoring him. He started honking aggressively, swerving into my lane to try and force me off the road. I held my ground, terrified. until I saw a sign for a major truck stop ahead, one I knew would be crowded. I took the exit fast. He followed me right to the entrance of the busy lot. I pulled right up to the brightly lit fuel pumps where several other truckers were standing. The van hesitated at the entrance, then suddenly peeled away, tires screeching as it sped back onto the highway. Later, when I felt safe enough to check my truck, I found nothing wrong with it. But on the tailgate, perfectly visible in the dust, were two handprints. Someone had tried to open my truck while I was inside that restroom. If I hadn't come out when I did, I don't know what would have been waiting for me in my own vehicle.